Welcome to the virtual book launch of Making a Difference. Thank you for joining us from your home or workplace this morning. I'm Stefan Stern and I'll be your host today. Now, the last year has more than ever taught us about giving back, about how doing things the right way with the right leadership in place can help us all. And we've all seen examples, many driven by COVID, that have shone a light on the many scandals in so many aspects of society that could have been prevented or avoided. And at the same time, how many people want to give something back to their local community, to a charity they believe in, or just a good cause, to really make a difference for the better. And that's what this book addresses. Independence, making difficult decisions and having true clarity over the end goal are the key factors in organizational success. It seeks to outline why diversity of thought and background and skill are critically important. This book will inspire you to put yourself forward, to take a seat at the table and get involved in organizational change. Now, I'm particularly interested in this book because I've been writing about management and leadership for almost 3 decades now at the BBC, Management Today magazine, the Financial Times, as well as being a visiting professor in management practice at the business school at City University of London. So today we're going to give you a snapshot into this insightful book and why now it's more critical than ever to make a difference and give something back. I'll introduce you to the author, those involved in the book, and also industry experts who have contributed to it. And at the end, we'll have an interactive Q&A session. So I hope you enjoy the show, and I'll now hand over to our author, Gerry Brown. Gerry is an esteemed business leader and author of 2 books, The Independent Director and The Independent Director in Society. His passion is making sure organizations are better run, that they have independent experts overseeing their destiny for the greater good of society. Over to you, Gerry.
Thank you very much indeed for joining us at this book launch, and I hope that you really enjoy it. This is also an opportunity to publicly thank all of those involved in the production of the book. And that includes the reviewers, those who were interviewed, our son Mario and granddaughter Aurora for their work on the cover, Tina Lyons and Jeff for help with the manuscript, and also, of course, daughter Cayetana and Edmay at Stray Cat for helping to produce this virtual book launch, and to you, Stefan, for agreeing to compare the event.
Now, why did you want to write this book?
I wanted to write this book to tell the stories of those who are making a difference up and down the country. We all like to hear stories. I remember, for example, reading the Little Miss books to our daughter Cayetana. So I thought it might inspire others if they heard these stories. It's especially necessary at this time of COVID. This book is also dedicated to my brother, Ben, who works with a charity for the mentally handicapped.
And why were the contributors chosen to be interviewed and written about in this book?
The contributors were chosen for 4 main reasons. Firstly, because they're all practicing independent directors. Secondly, they come from all different sectors. Thirdly, they come from a different diversity of backgrounds. And lastly, because they all have a very interesting story to tell.
Why do people want to make a difference as an independent director?
People want to make a difference as an independent director for a number of reasons. Primarily, I would say, to give something back 17% of the population, for example, volunteer for a cause. Then to really make a difference for the better, we've got too many scandals, for example, in many aspects of society. And then lastly, COVID has resulted in many more volunteers. For example, 750,000 people volunteered to help with the NHS earlier in the year.
How do people really make a difference as an independent director?
People make a difference as an independent director in a number of ways. First of all, they have a very critical role in running the schools, hospitals, colleges, universities, charities, sporting organisations, etc., up and down the country. There are, for example, 170,000 different charities. Then they can bring an independent opinion to bear. They've got experiences from a different organisation or sector to bring. They can also look at board issues from the perspective of a long-term custodian, and they can also take the perspective of all of the stakeholders involved in an organisation.
What kind of opportunities are there to make a difference as an independent director?
There are a number of opportunities to make a difference. Firstly, there is the crisis in governance, which is well documented in the book which I recently wrote with Henley Business School, where we were able to interview 600 different trustees from all different governing bodies, from the different variety of sectors: schools, technical colleges, sporting bodies, charities, universities, NHS trusts, and we were able to demonstrate the crisis in governance there. And then, of course, to help to reduce the number of scandals.
What are some of the challenges and pitfalls in being an independent director?
Some of the challenges and pitfalls include, first of all, avoiding going native. That means avoiding becoming too sympathetic and understanding of the position of the executives. Then it involves preparing for the role, not just attending board meetings, but getting under the skin of an organisation, for example, by visiting the operations. And then striking the balance of overseeing governance, but also adding value. Then there is the could be extensive time commitment involved. And lastly, getting time off from employers.
What sort of knowledge and skills and experience are needed to succeed as an independent director?
The knowledge skills that are needed in order to succeed include the following. For example, in terms of personal characteristics: independence, integrity, communication skills, a sense of responsibility, listening skills, and cultural flexibility. Then in terms of professional skills, expertise to do with strategy formulation, problem solving, technical expertise, for example, cybersecurity or digital transformation, and then chairing and committee membership, including audit and remuneration.
What are some of the benefits of having a more diverse board in business and organisations?
Some of the benefits of greater diversity include, for example, improved board performance. The consultants McKinsey carried out a very important study and were able to objectively demonstrate that greater diversity leads to better performance. Then we have the different perspectives which those from a different ethnic background, for example, or being disabled can bring to board issues. It also helps the recruitment of a more diverse workforce and helps to improve the reputation of the organisation.
And as an independent director, what sort of tasks and roles will you be signing up for?
As an independent director, you'll be signing up to contribute towards improving and making a difference in the organisation in quite specific areas. For example, to do with strategy or monitoring performance or risk management or board evaluation or specialist expertise on board committees, whether it's audit, remuneration or nomination.
Thank you, Gerry Brown. Now, I'd like to hand over to Further Education Commissioner Richard Atkins, CB. And first of all, Richard, congratulations on your recent knighthood.
Thank you, Stefan. Thanks very much.
So on to our first question. What key message do you want to give anyone watching who is considering volunteering into becoming an independent director?
Really to stress how important it is for any education institution, school, college, university, to engage people with a wide range of backgrounds, to create diverse boards, because that's how leaders of those institutions and the staff in those institutions benefit. In the modern world, that all schools and colleges and universities need to be run in an effective and efficient way. And to do that, governance is critically important. And the best governing bodies are diverse. They draw on people with a range of skills and backgrounds who can support and challenge and encourage the senior staff and the other staff to do the best possible job for students.
And how did you want to give back personally?
I felt, as a principal of a college for 21 years, that the governors taught me so much, supported me so well, and enabled myself and the other senior staff in the college to look outwards as well as to look inwards and to see the bigger world, and also to help me face up to modern day challenges about finance or property, things that I, coming from a teaching background, was very, very underdeveloped in, and they've been an enormous help to me and support.
How will your sector benefit from those who want to give something back?
I think the education sector will benefit by enabling and supporting institutions, schools, colleges, universities to do a better job. We all have limited resources. We need to maximise those resources for the benefit of students, and we need to focus relentlessly on improving the teaching and learning and support for students.
How important is making a difference to you personally?
Governance has made a huge difference to me personally throughout the 21 years that I was a principal, and in my current role for the past 5 years as commissioner. I have seen how the institutions that are well run benefit enormously from the contribution that these volunteers are making, whether their background is from property, the law, from education itself, from journalism, Stefan, whatever the background that people are coming from, they add enormous value and bring a lot of experience, and enabled me as a principal, and I see it in many other schools and colleges and universities, it enables the leaders of those institutions to do a better job. It enables them to deal with the challenges they face in the modern world. It enables them to think outside the box, and it enables them to draw on a huge amount of experience. Otherwise, to be honest, leading an institution can be quite a lonely job.
How can the volunteering sector be better run, do you think?
I think, first of all, promoting it in the way that this book would enable the sector to be better run. I think promoting the benefits and the opportunities that exist for people to volunteer would help considerably. I don't actually think it's all about remuneration. I think it's much more about recognition, about celebration, and about promoting the benefits positively in the way that Gerry Brown's book does.
Why did you want to contribute something to this book?
Well, I wanted to contribute something to this book because I've known Gerry for some years because we've both been together on the same council at the same university as governors. But because of my professional background, first as a college principal, but very much during the last 4 or 5 years as the Further Education Commissioner, where I've had a national role in England, working across further education sixth form colleges, and I'm working as well as with some of the most successful, working with some of the least successful. And of course, what I saw in the least successful, the ones that were struggling, was poor governance often lay at the heart of the difficulties. And that if you can put governance right, and leadership will follow. And if you get governance and leadership right, education institutions will benefit, and ultimately learners will do better. What I find is that when institutions are doing well, the governors don't get noticed much, a bit like a referee in a football match that's going well. When things aren't going well, people say, what are the governors doing about it? Where are the governors?
How will your sector benefit from a higher quality independent director being on the board?
Institutions like one of the ways that institutions like mine will benefit from having higher quality or high quality independent directors is that managing and leading a modern education institution is challenging. Budgets are devolved at institutional level. Many decisions about property, about finance, about strategic direction, about planning have to be taken by the senior leadership team with the governors. So if you can bring onto your governing body individuals with plenty of experience of carrying out these activities in other sectors, but having the values that you have in an education institution about promoting inclusivity and student success, then you've got a fantastic mix of breadth and experience to support the focused leadership of the institution.
Well, thank you very much, Sir Richard, for your wonderful answers today. I'd like to hand over to Dr. Dipti Amin, who holds a variety of non-executive directorships, including being on the board of the Buckinghamshire Healthcare NHS Trust. Welcome, Dipti, and thank you for joining us today.
Thank you, Stefan. It's a pleasure to be here.
How important is making a difference to you personally?
Making a difference is really important to me. It was the reason that I first decided to become an independent director while I was still in full-time work. And I went to my boss, the CEO, and said, I'd like to join the board of an NHS trust. Fortunately for me, he was very supportive. And because I was passionate, I made it work, and my employers made it work, and the NHS Trust made it work. But to me, it was all about giving back to an organisation and an entity where, if you like, that had trained me. I had grown up through it, and I'm such a passionate believer in the NHS that I wanted to be part of its success versus standing from the sidelines pontificating about what could be better when, you know, it's an organisation that does amazing work but faces a lot of challenges.
How can the volunteering sector be better run?
The volunteering sector has a lot of challenges, not least because it's looking for volunteers versus people who are paid to do an independent director's role. And I believe that the key challenge that they have, which is attracting good people, needs to be addressed by really appealing to the desire to give back in people versus anything else. Certainly the two roles that I do currently that are essentially volunteering roles are really because both of those sectors are areas I believe in passionately, and I've always believed that those are the two areas, health and education, that make a real difference to people's lives in the long term if society gets it right. And I want to be part of that, part of improving that.
Why is good leadership so important, especially given the impact of COVID-19 at the moment?
Leadership is extremely important because often organisations lack true leadership. To me, leadership is about standing up and being counted for what you believe in and being authentic and communicating very clearly and honestly with the people that you're trying to lead. And that can sometimes mean talking about things that are uncomfortable, giving difficult messages. almost everyone can give an easy message. It's the difficult messages that really, stand out the good leaders from the not so good leaders, shall we say.
Why did you want to contribute to this book?
I was delighted to contribute to this book when I heard what the ethos was behind it, and Gerry explained what he was trying to achieve. And it's very simple to me. It is about encouraging really capable people to join boards and add to the diversity that we're looking for.
Now, what are some of the challenges and pitfalls of being an independent director?
The most common challenge or pitfall of being an independent director is not to get sucked into operational detail, especially if you've worked as an executive, running big operations, and suddenly you get into an arena where you can see all sorts of things that you could impact. It's easy to start giving direction and telling people what to do, and that is not the role of an independent director. Our role as an independent director is to challenge what we're told, but in a supportive way, to ask the questions that stimulate thought amongst the executives and hopefully encourage them to go back and think about doing something in a different way because you've made a cogent case or point, as opposed to telling people what to do and telling people to do something your way, which isn't necessarily the right way. The important thing is to have that discussion and debate. And that's where some of the having the courage of your convictions and the positive attitude will help as well.
What knowledge, skills and experience are needed to succeed?
I believe that the knowledge, skills and experience you need will certainly vary by sector in terms of the technical aspects. But the generic aspects are all about people who are good at communicating, good at influencing, and that influencing is key because that is the way you make change happen. People who stay calm and collected, who know how to pick the battles to fight, because there's no point in going after everything. Work out what really matters that needs to change. Being honest and authentic. We don't want side conversations and griping and then saying something different when you're in the main board meeting. That's the kind of activity that starts to make a board toxic. So we need people who are honest, have integrity, are good communicators, good influencers, and courageous, and of course have good leadership skills.
Dipti, thank you very much for your time today.
Thank you, Stefan. It was an absolute pleasure.
Excellent. Thank you, Dipti. And now, talking about sport, is the Executive Chair and Head of International Relations at International Soccer Federation. It's Janie Frampton. Hello, Janie, and thank you very much for joining us today.
Pleasure.
How will the sports sector benefit from having a strong board of independent directors?
I think it's really important that the sports sector would absolutely benefit from having independent directors, purely based on the fact that you need skill sets. And if you all have the same skill sets on a board, then that's not very useful. So you look at your skill gaps, and bearing in mind that a lot of sports are non-for-profit or charity, which makes it even more important that we get the right skills.
How important is making a difference to you personally?
I think it's really important to me to make a difference in the sports sector and the charity sector. I am a very strong believer that if everybody does a little bit, then this world could be a much better place, and particularly our sport. And don't forget, our sport is mainly run on volunteers because it doesn't have the funding it needs to have paid roles.
How important has the experience from your career been in helping you to be a better independent director for the sector that you work in?
I do think my experience is really important when I sort of looked at doing this role, because I think I came from a physical sporting background, and you see so many things that need changing or need support, and unless you step up and do some of that, then it's not going to change. So for me, it was hugely important that I took part in volunteering post my physical career.
And why did you want to contribute to this book in particular?
The contribution to this book, I felt, was hugely important if it can get the message out there at all, that particularly we need more women involved in these roles.
Do you have a story from the sports sector, or perhaps a statistic that reinforces the messages contained in the book?
Yeah, I think one of the messages I would bring that I think that the book enhances is the fact that, you know, some years ago there was a white paper from government saying there wasn't enough women on sports boards, and sometimes women don't know how to go about doing that. Sometimes they don't know what the journey is, how to make a contact, whether they have the right skill sets. So I think it's really important the messages through this book reiterate the fact that, you know, with the skill sets, with the drive and the passion and the desire, you can make a huge difference to sport as an ed.
What knowledge and skills and experience are needed to succeed as an independent director?
I think the knowledge, skills and experience needed to be a good non-exec director, a lot of it is listening. I think other skills are things like your emotional intelligence, understanding people and managing people and situations, because you often find when you're sat around a board table, everybody's got something to say. And you learn an awful lot more if you sit and listen first. And I can remember my mentor, who was an amazing woman, she once said to me, always remember, what good question have you asked today? So listen a lot and then ask that one good question.
What are the benefits of board diversity?
The benefits of board diversity, I think, are very clear. I think if you've got a diverse board, then you've got all aspects of that sport in the decision-making roles. And there is nothing worse, and please excuse me when I say, because I'm using it as an example, if you have a board of all white men, what do they know about sport perspective from a female, from a person of colour? They don't know. I'm a strong believer that you've got to do this piece about don't tell me what I want if you haven't walked in my shoes.
Well, Janie, thank you very much for being with us today.
You're very welcome. Thank you.
And now moving on to charities, let's welcome the Director of Fundraising for Communities, supporter-led fundraising and engagement events and sports at Cancer Research UK. It's Simon Ledsham. Welcome, Simon. Thank you for joining us today.
Oh, it's great to be here, Stefan.
How can the volunteering sector be better run?
So I think the volunteering sector more broadly can benefit from the input and experience that independent directors can bring. I think as a sector, we're a sector that isn't always as representative as the sort of communities that our causes are there to serve. So I think an independent director can bring some diversity, they can bring some experience, they can bring some independence of thought into organizations that might not be there in the management teams of the organization or the leadership teams.
Why is good leadership so important right now, especially given the impact of COVID-19?
I think good leadership is vital at the moment to ensure that organizations are being realistic and pragmatic in their goal setting, that they're being agile, they're adapting to new ways of working and new conditions that we're all having to face at the moment.
How important has the experience from your career been in helping you to be a better independent director for the sector that you're working in?
So if I were to put my trustee hat on for the moment, I draw on my working career experience. I had about 12 years in the commercial retail industry, leaving school at 18 and joining Next as it was back in the late 80s. And I still draw on a lot of that experience because the retail trust that I'm a non-exec director for, a trustee for, is all about how, part of the organization, about how, people get into retail and how they're supported in that industry. And so I guess my experience of working in this industry has been vital to contributing there. And then more latterly, I've spent the last 20 years at Cancer Research UK as fundraising director and as retail director. So I'm able to bring, running as an executive part of Cancer Research UK into the retail trust and really help to understand and immerse myself in that organisation.
Why did you want to contribute to this book?
Oh, I think this book is going to hopefully raise the profile of the importance of giving your time and giving your time throughout your career. I think one of the threads of the book that I found quite interesting and something that I've believed in for a long time is to not leave it to perhaps the end of your working career when you start thinking about this, but actually contribute throughout your working career so that that experience that you can bring to an organization is current and relevant to the organization you're supporting.
What are some of the challenges being faced by charities that could be helped by good and better leadership?
Some of the challenges that the charity sector face at the moment are around some of the obvious commercial sector challenges as well, the advancement of data and digital in the way in which we connect with our supporters or our customers. And I think having good quality independent directors who can bring relevant experience around that is really important.
What knowledge and skills and experience are needed to succeed as an independent director?
I think if you're going to come into the charity sector and the voluntary sector as an independent director or trustee, you need to understand the cause. The cause needs to resonate with you. You need to have a passion and an energy for it, because I think that's when you will truly give the best of yourself and get the best out of others.
Well, thank you very much for being with us today, Simon.
Thank you.
And now I'd like to hand over to Steve Hardman, publisher at De Gruyter, to give an overview as to why he believes this book can make a difference. Well, Steve, perhaps you could tell us first why you decided to publish this book.
Well, thank you, Stefan. So why did we decide to publish the book? When we evaluate a proposal for a new book, there have to be very good reasons to sign the book. Firstly, the author has to have something to say. There has to be a very clear and focused message. Obviously, it needs to be well written, and it needs to be well supported by data and cases and examples as well. But also what is important, it's not another Me Too book, and it can stand out from the business books that are published. In total, there are something like about 184,000 books published every year in the UK. And it's hard to put a number against the total number of business books because many are self-published. But there are probably several thousand business books published each year in the UK. So when we decide to publish a new book, it really has to stand out. And Gerry's book does that.
How will the book help address some of the challenges in the sectors that it covers?
I believe that the book will connect with a wide audience. Gerry writes in a very accessible style, and he uses examples that people can relate to, and it's a language that people understand. I think one of the particular features of Gerry's book is the role of the independent director in the public sector and charities, and that's not always covered so well in other books. And another important topic I think that Gerry covers is the need for greater diversity in the boardroom these days.
How will reading this book help someone become a better independent director?
I think the book will help somebody become a better independent director for various reasons, but particularly the chapters towards the end of the book. Some very good practical advice about applying for the role of the independent director, preparing for the interview, and also just general advice for the first-time independent director volunteer, and help also in helping people how to sort of grow into their role and to develop their voice as an independent director on a board. Given
the current challenges, how will this book help?
I think, given the current challenges we face, that the book will help in one very key way. And I think it'll play a very important societal sort of task in a sense of opening up the role of the independent director to a wider range of people. It would teach them what the job entails and how it can draw on people's skills and experience. And I think generally Gerry's book will really do this very well. It will just make people much more aware of the role of the independent director.
What makes this book unique, do you think?
I believe that this book is unique because it describes although there are other books which describe the role of the independent director, and there are books on social action and social change, but this is the first book that I've seen that really encourages people to come forward and to volunteer to take on the role of independent director.
Steve, thanks very much for being with us here today.
Thank you, Stefan.
Okay, we're now going to open up the Q&A session. For those of you watching at home, feel free to ask a question via the chat function on the screen. All right, well, we've got our first question. What would someone learn from reading this book?
Having read Gerry's book myself, I believe it's excellent at giving someone a hands-on, step-by-step guide to how you can become an independent director, what you need to do from the beginning to getting onto a board, including the skills that you need to emphasize that you have, to how you approach potential recruiters or your network, how you make yourself known, to preparing your CV, preparing for an interview, and then what to look for in the companies or entities that you're looking to target, and the importance of not only knowing whether you are a right fit for that organisation, but whether that organisation is the right fit for you.
If someone was interested in becoming an independent director in your sector, how should they go about doing that and getting in touch with organisations?
To become an independent director in the charity sector is probably not dissimilar to the commercial sector, in that, you know, often agencies will be used if it's a formal application process, and you know, there are certain agencies who specialise in our sector as they do in certain commercial sectors. But I also think just getting involved in organisations is a good way to get insight. And I guess the difference between the charity sector and most commercial sector organisations is that we have tons of volunteer positions. You don't have to be a trustee or an independent director. You can volunteer your time, your voice, or your support in many different ways.
What's your advice for the first-time independent director?
My advice for the first-time independent director, number one, is don't catch the first bus that comes along. What do I mean by that? I mean that there'll be hopefully a number of opportunities which you're able to identify. You need to evaluate each of those. You need to do a pretty comprehensive due diligence about what each of those involves. And then you really need to spend some time, once you've been appointed, getting to understand the organisation and all the issues, and don't feel that you really have got to make an immediate impact straight away. You should spend time listening and then tailor your opinion to whatever specific issues arise at board meetings. But the main issue, I would say, is really to enjoy the experience of getting involved and being able to make a difference.
Unfortunately, that's all we've got time for today, but any unanswered questions will be posted on the website after the event with responses. And that brings us to the end of the Making a Difference book launch. We hope you've enjoyed it. Thank you very much for attending. If you'd like to purchase the book, it can be bought through the publisher, De Gruyter, through Amazon or any independent bookstore. An ebook is free until the end of January for that limited time only. Keep an eye out for activity on the website. We look forward to seeing you again in real life soon. Goodbye from all of us.